What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the Chiefs Zone podcast. My name is Farzin Vasugian. It is Tuesday, July the 22nd. Chiefs training camp has kicked off. I know I had been saying for a while, we're going to do a podcast once training camp gets underway, and we'll start Wednesday. But no, we got to start a little sooner here. A lot of things to get into on this Tuesday. And yes, we'll still have podcasts Wednesday and Thursday. The podcast will continue on Wednesdays as usual. And of course, a lot of you guys hyped up. You could just feel the energy based on reactions online. I mean, Chiefs fans are into it. You hear all the updates, everything going on in training camp. You can certainly feel the vibe from those who were at training camp. Everyone's hyped up right now. This is where football season does get underway. And then, the preseason games, it goes up a notch and then kind of quiets down because let's be honest, none of us are really thrilled about the preseason as it goes on with the first game. And then, of course, the remainder of the preseason. But that does bring us closer and closer to kickoff. So a lot of things to get into here on this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. We will talk about some of the highlights, the big news and notes from day one of Chiefs training camp out in St. Joe. Mark Donovan spoke to the media talking about the stadium situation, also talked about St. Joe. Seemed like we were misled by a certain politician. Also talked about the docuseries that has now been announced with a release date on the Kansas City Chiefs dynasty. Also, some NFL news. A former Chief has retired. Phillip Rivers also retires officially. Jerry Jones has made a very interesting comment that's got a lot of people riled up. And the Trey Hendrickson saga, easily the biggest story of the NFL offseason, that has taken another interesting turn. We're going to discuss all of that here on this episode and more on the Chiefs Zone podcast. A lot of things to get into here. Obviously, like I said, training camp is underway. That means we are getting closer and closer to football season kicking off. If you guys want to catch any of the action preseason, the regular season, maybe you want to wait for the playoffs, maybe you want to catch some college football action, some KU, K-State, Mizzou, whoever your college team is, the best place to go for all of your sports ticketing needs is SeatGeek. That's where I go to for all of my ticketing needs. Got a couple of Chiefs tickets for the season, and that's thanks to my friends over at SeatGeek, and I encourage you guys to get your Chiefs or your NFL tickets from SeatGeek. And if you're a new customer, all you have to do is put in my promo code to save $20 off your first purchase from SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com, pick your ticket to not checkout, enter my promo code Farzine, and save $20 off your first purchase from SeatGeek. All right, let's get into it here. If you guys are watching on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, say hello. I definitely want to hear from you guys. Join the discussion. Ask any questions you've got, anything, whether you agree, disagree with me. Please, want to hear from you guys as we go on throughout the podcast here. Let's start by talking about the Chiefs' day one of training camp underway. And I feel like the biggest talking point from Chiefs training camp today, and keep in mind, it's just day one and it is just training camp, but this was pretty significant to a lot of Chiefs fans, and that is the offensive tackle lineup. Now, I mentioned on social media the other day, we haven't had a chance to do a podcast on this yet, so this is my first time on this podcast being able to bring it up. Andy Reid mentioned on Monday as the team had arrived, or Sunday rather, excuse me, Andy Reid mentioned this, and according to reports, the entire team did arrive on Sunday. Jawan Taylor, the right tackle for the Chiefs, is starting training camp on the PUP, the physically unable to perform list. Some people call it the PUP. Andy Reid did hint that Jawan should not be on there for too long, and that he'd be close to coming off the PUP. Compared to some of the other, Christian Fulton, the new cornerback who the Chiefs signed in the offseason, he's also on the PUP. But Jawan Taylor, and now, listen, you never want to hear about injuries, none of that. Jawan is dealing with a knee injury. And right now, they need someone else to fill in that right tackle. So when it came to the starting lineup with repetitions and whatnot, Josh Simmons, the Chiefs rookie left tackle, drafted in the first round this year, as expected, is taking the starting reigns, the role, the reps with the ones at left tackle. Right tackle, could have gone with Wanye Morris, could have maybe gone with someone else. No, they're going with Jalen Moore. And I'm not surprised by that. I don't think anyone should be. They signed Jalen Moore to a fairly nice contract this past offseason. So I think it makes sense to put Jalen Moore out there at right tackle to start things off with while Jawaan Taylor is on PUP. And there were a lot of people who, listen, again, you never want to see any player injured. No one ever wants to see that. But I don't think you're seeing a lot of Chiefs fans sweat the fact that Taylor is on the pup right now. And when you look at the fact that Taylor is unavailable and they put Jalen Moore out there, a lot of people were excited about that in Kansas City. A lot of Chiefs fans felt good about that. And I saw some people say that that would be their ideal week one lineup, to have Josh Simmons at left tackle and Jalen Moore at right tackle. I will say this right now, because the expectation is Jawaan Taylor is not expected to be on the PUP for too long. So once Jawaan Taylor comes back, he'll be in there taking the starting reins at right tackle. But if he struggles in the first couple of weeks of the regular season, maybe even in the preseason, if you see some serious struggles from Jawaan Taylor, because we know his pass blocking has been inconsistent. The one big thing that gets talked about a lot with Jawaan Taylor is the penalties. I mean, listen, the Chiefs don't have a lot of time to give guys chances on this offensive line. We saw what happened in Super Bowl 55. You had a lot of offensive linemen injured. Patrick Mahomes was playing with a backup crew in Super Bowl 55. Brett Veach revamped that entire offensive line. 5 new offensive linemen that offseason going into 2021. Now, you don't have the same kind of process this offseason, fortunately. You have some guys that you can rely on in Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, 2 guys who have new contracts. You have Kingsley Suamataia playing left guard, and there's some optimism that he can be a better left guard than he was a left tackle. Josh Simmons has a lot of hype coming into the NFL, and if it wasn't for his injury, the thought process is that he would have been drafted a lot sooner. The right tackle position is the one that everyone just talks about the most. I've said for a long time, if Jawaan Taylor is the weak link on your offensive line, well, I think Patrick Mahomes can manage with that. If the right tackle position, your non-blindside spot, if that's the weak link on the offensive line, that's manageable. Especially if you're Patrick Mahomes, who's, let's be honest, he has done a good job of covering up for some of the flaws at offensive tackle, not just this past year, but over the years. When it was Orlando Brown, Andrew Wiley. I mean, the Chiefs have had a lot of issues at offensive tackle over the last few years, ever since they cut Eric Fisher after the 2020 season. Fisher and Schwartz. I'll say this right now, because if I had to bet on this, I think the Chiefs do start Josh Simmons at left tackle and Jawaan Taylor at right tackle when the Chiefs go play the Chargers in Brazil on September the 5th to be the second team, the second game rather of the NFL season. That'll be the first game, obviously, for the Chiefs. But if Jawaan Taylor shows that he's struggling, I mean, I don't know. When do you pull the plug and put Jalen Moore in there? Because right now, Jalen Moore is getting those right tackle reps, which is huge. Because I think the way the Chiefs are viewing this right now, they want Josh Simmons to stay at left tackle. I know he has some experience playing right tackle in college. Not good experience. He was a far better left tackle than he was a right tackle. So if you have Jalen Moore, and if he's getting these repetitions right now in training camp, well, the good news is whenever the time comes to pull the plug on Jawaan Taylor, if need be, you can slide in Jalen Moore and have some level of comfort knowing that he's spent some time at that position, so he knows what's expected, specifically on the right side than the left side. I remember a long time ago, if you guys recall, Damian McIntosh, who played for the Kansas City Chiefs during the Herm Edwards era and maybe briefly in the Todd Haley era. I can't remember exactly, but he had to make that switch from left to right tackle. And I remember he did an interview one time saying that the biggest challenge is from that his entire career. He had spent, and I can't remember if he started as a left tackle or a right tackle, but I think it was left tackle where he spent his entire career taking that, you know, uh, that normal, natural step back with his left foot first, and then having to switch to right tackle. It was a whole new feeling for him and something that he was not used to. I know Eric Fisher went through that in Kansas City, having to switch back and forth a couple of times before being a solidified left tackle for the Chiefs. I'll say this right now. I'm not expecting a lot of improvement from Jawan Taylor. Hopefully he plays great. I mean, the guy's getting paid a lot of money, so he should play well. But we know that doesn't always translate, whatever the amount of money you're making does not always translate to success on the field. But if Jawan Taylor has his issues, can't show improvement, yeah, Kansas City's going to have Jalen Moore ready on the sidelines, and they'll put him in there. I mean, listen, the Chiefs did it last year in that Black Friday game against the Raiders when their left tackles were just struggling. Didn't matter if it was Wanye Morris or Tyrann Mathieu. I think for that Black Friday game specifically, it was Wanye Morris. They pull him out of the game. They move Tooney over to left tackle, and they put Mike Eliendo in there. So the Chiefs will make that move in game if they need to. Now, ideally, you'd like to know before the regular season, can Jawan Taylor be the viable option going into week 1, going into Brazil? Now, in the preseason, there's only so much you can learn because the starters don't play as much, which is understandable for obvious reasons. But boy, ideally speaking, if you see Jawan Taylor struggling a lot, that might be the warning sign. Struggling a lot in the preseason, to clarify, that might be the warning sign that, hey, look, maybe Jalen Moore is a better option for week 1 here. I don't know how it's all going to play out, but that is going to be one of the positions that I think a lot of people are going to keep an eye on. I don't want to call it a position battle, at least not yet, because I don't think it is a position battle. I think it's still Jawan Taylor's job. It's his to lose. But Jawan Taylor is on a short leash this year, 100%. And the Chiefs, they won't think twice, because if Patrick Mahomes is dealing with pressure, I mean, they'll make that change very quickly, 100%. Jalen Moore is on speed dial if the Chiefs need to put him in there at right tackle. Another player that got a lot of attention today in practice, a guy who had a very heavy workload, was Rashee Rice. I saw the tweet from Nate Taylor, who was formerly of The Athletic. Now he's with ESPN, replacing Adam Teicher, mentioned that he was the most targeted receiver for Kansas City in practice today. Got involved a lot with Kansas City's offense. And a lot of people were wondering, is this in case of a potential suspension or any of that? Now, if the suspension is announced today or tomorrow, he can still stay with the team throughout training camp and the preseason. It would be, once the regular season gets underway, when you start prepping for that first regular season game, I should say, that's when the suspension would officially begin. But Patrick Mahomes spoke to the media today and said, it really isn't about that. It's not something that's within the team's control. I've said before, when the announcement came yesterday about his plea deal agreement and all of that, we don't know when the suspension is going to come. It could come tomorrow. It could come in week 5. We saw it with Willie Gay and Frank Clark. Those two players, if you remember, both in 2022 had some off the field incidents. Willie Gay with some sort of a domestic violence accusation. Frank Clark had an Uzi on in his vehicle. They both received their suspensions during the season, which is far from ideal. And I've said this before with Rashee Rice. It would not be the worst thing in the world if Rashee Rice started the regular season with a suspension. I mean, listen, what he did off the field, bad move. He's acknowledged it. The team's aware of it. They've certainly taken care of that behind closed doors, I'm sure. But from a football standpoint, is it the worst idea in the world to have Rice on reserve / suspension? However, they're going to label it on the roster sheet. Because keep in mind, Rice is coming off a knee injury, and I know he's fully recovered and he's out there as a full participant. I get all of that, but game speed in training camp versus game speed in an actual game, uh, two different things. So if Rashi Rice were to get a little bit more time, and again, we don't know what the suspension could be, when and if, and how many games, but it would not be the worst idea in the world if Rice started the season on suspension, took a little bit more time to recover with that knee if need be. I don't think he needs it, but hey, could never hurt, especially with knee injuries, whether minor or major. Can train on his own for a little bit, do what he needs to do, come back. He'll give the offense a nice, fresh set of legs there and hands. This is someone who got off to a hot start last year, was a top 5 receiver in receptions, receiving yards, and touchdown grabs. And it would not surprise me if he picked up from where he left off after that injury he suffered early in the season in week 4, early in that game. So I'm expecting Rice to have another good season. Obviously, he's taken a bigger role in training camp. I remember last year, and Hollywood Brown had a quiet day, not a whole lot of talk from him. And listen, it's training camp. Not everyone's going to be fairly busy. Kelsey had a couple of plays. Worthy had a nice play on a deep pass there. Rice, again, as I mentioned earlier, was Kansas City's busiest pass catcher. Hollywood Brown, not a fairly quiet day from him. Doesn't mean it'll always be that way. Tomorrow, he could be the guy that gets a heavy workload, and Rashi Rice is going to have more of a quiet day. That's certainly possible as well. So we'll see how all of that unfolds. There's a lot of time. That's why they start training camp around this time of the year, to have a couple of weeks before that first preseason game, see how everyone's doing, give everyone several opportunities, and then you go from there. So good to see Rashi Rice, because Rice didn't really have this kind of a workload. And again, I know it's just one day of training camp so far we're reacting to, but I think the expectation is he continues to be this busy and take this kind of a workload with the Chiefs offense, because he didn't have this last year in training camp. I'll tell you that right now. I think there was maybe some thought that he would certainly grow going into his second season, not the way he showed last year. I mean, that very first game against Baltimore, he was impossible to stop. What was it? 7 receptions for 101 yards. I actually want to pull that up right now, because I want to know how many times he was targeted and how many of them were caught, thrown his way. Let me check that quickly. So he had 9 targets, 7 of them he caught, and it ended up being 103 yards. I was off by a couple, my bad. Yeah, I mean, he looked good. He finished the season 288 yards, 2 touchdowns. You can't really even count the fourth game, because if you recall, that was when the Chiefs committed 2 turnovers in 5 snaps. They came back and won the game without Rice, but 24 receptions, 288 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he got off to a really good start early on. He had the 7 catches against Baltimore. He had 12 against Atlanta. He had 103 yards against the Ravens, 110 against the Falcons. His biggest catch and run play was against the Bengals, when he had that 44-yard catch and run play. Didn't have to run a whole lot. Burn CTB on that play. Cam Taylor-Britt. And in fact, that's the same player he torched the year before, if you recall, when those 2 teams played on New Year's Eve, when the Chiefs defeated them, eliminated them from postseason contention, and at the same time won the AFC West. So Rice certainly has had his number over the last few years, but had played well overall in those 3 games. And again, I'm not really counting the fourth game, because he only had 5 snaps in that one. So hopefully he'll be able to pick up from where he left off in 2025. No, Rice did not get a suspension yet. I see that question from Bob in the chat. Didn't get a suspension yet, but we're anticipating that soon, hopefully. Again, you just don't know with the NFL. Alex on Instagram says, I am going to be at training camp on the 27th, the 28th, and the 29th. Alex, that is dedication, man. By the way, and I'll get into this shortly, because Mark Donovan had some notes about the stadium and St. Joe and whatnot. He mentioned that security was trying to notify the university personnel and everybody that fans were lining up at 2 a.m. Chiefs football is back when Chiefs fans are lining up at 2 a.m. for practice. What did Allen Iverson say? We're talking about practice here. So that's how you know Chiefs football is back in full swing. But yeah, 3 days in a row of training camp. Good on you, Alex. Stay cool. Definitely get some water while you're there, because it does get hot out there. Michael, I thought I saw a comment from Michael on here, or no, maybe I misread. Eric says, can't get any worse at right tackle. I mean, I suppose. Listen, here's the thing. Whenever fans complain about a specific player and wonder why are we not making a change there, I mean, I've had those questions too over the years, but kind of makes you wonder. I mean, if that's the best they've got at a specific, like Dan Sorensen several years ago, remember that he had a really terrible 2021 season. I think it was 2021 or 2022. I can't remember. It was 21, I think. He was pretty bad that year. But why didn't they make a change? Probably because the backups weren't much better. Now that's why they signed Jalen Moore as an insurance policy for one of the offensive tackle spots for sure. Carlos on Instagram says, you should come to one of Bad Bunny's concerts in Puerto Rico, just like Pacheco. There are a lot of Chiefs fans around here. I believe that, man. Especially with Pacheco having the Puerto Rico flag on his helmet. And I think they put that in the Hall of Fame for a little bit too. So that's pretty cool for sure. I assume you're in Puerto Rico. Shout out to Puerto Rico. I always like it when people are watching from outside of the Kansas City area. So I appreciate anyone that's tuning in to the podcast from whether you're in the Kansas City area or outside. It's always even cooler to hear from people outside of the U.S. But back to Chiefs football here. So those are really the two big points: the offensive tackle lineup and also Rashee Rice. George Karlaftis and Trey Smith, they spoke to the media today. Obviously, they both just signed big deals. Trey Smith got his deal last week. George Karlaftis got his over the weekend. I'll start with George Karlaftis because he spoke first. He's entering year 4. By the way, before I get into that, Karlaftis and Smith, I think they gave the traditional answers whenever you get a contract extension. They both said how much they wanted to stay in Kansas City because of the people, because of the community, the town they've fallen in love with, but more importantly, the teammates, the coaches, all of those things. So it's good to see that they've both been able to enjoy and appreciate Kansas City, both on the field and off the field. And both of those guys are going to be around for a few more years, which is great. And specifically with Karlaftis, and I know I touched on this earlier, but I just got to point out, the defensive line could be set for quite some time here. You have Chris Jones, who you signed last year to that monster deal. You have George Karlaftis, who's going to be signed through 2030. Chris Jones is signed through 2028. And then you have a couple of rookies on that defensive line. You have defensive tackle Omar Norman-Lott, who's signed through 2028 on a rookie deal. Ashton Gelati, Omar Norman-Lott was drafted in the second round. Ashton Gelati was drafted in the third round. He is signed through 2028 also on a rookie deal. And George Karlaftis was asked about now going into year 4, being that veteran leader and taking those guys under his wing and kind of getting them, more specifically Ashton Gelati. They've known each other for a couple of years and they also play the same position. Doesn't mean that, he can't ever mentor a defensive tackle in Norman-Lott. Yeah, I certainly can see that as well. I'm sure Chris Jones certainly lets the defensive ends like FAU, Ashton Gelati, pick his brain. That's what leaders do. But Ashton Gelati, and I love not Ashton Gelati, George Karlaftis, and I love the words he used in this one here, talked about passing down the torch, because he shouted out, and he's done this on multiple occasions, he shouted out former teammates in Frank Clark and Carlos Dunlap. Dunlap was the Chief for just 1 year. Frank Clark was here for a few years. And George Karlaftis talked about learning from them when he was a rookie. And now that he's in year 4, he's going out there and trying to teach these young guys in Norman-Lott and Gelati. So that was a pretty cool takeaway from George Karlaftis when talking about trying to be a guidance for these guys, because he's already done that for FAU. Remember a couple of years ago when FAU got drafted, Karlaftis was going into year 2. FAU was a rookie. And now that he's been here a couple of years, he's got a couple of rookie defensive linemen, day two defensive linemen that he's going to be mentoring. And he talked about wanting to play a role in their development, which is always what you want to hear. And this guy just signed his contract and he's saying things like that, which is always really cool. Holly says, drinking to Ozzy Osbourne. Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, I'd love to do a nice little tribute and play his music in between segments, but can't really do that due to copyright. But yeah, that one took me by surprise. That was a shocker for sure. I do want to get into Trey Smith before talking about Mark Donovan here. Trey Smith, when he signed his contract last week, he quickly took to social media and posted a photo of his mother saying, "This is for you, Dorsetta Smith." And I didn't really know the backstory about her, but he opened up a little bit about that today. And he talked about how he lost his mom at the age of 15. I mean, that is just unfortunate. I mean, losing a parent, never easy, regardless of the age. But losing a parent as a teenager in high school, that is, I mean, that's heartbreaking. That definitely has its challenges. And he said that he made two promises to her, that he would get his degree, which he did from Tennessee, green check mark right there, and that he would play in the NFL and eventually land a big contract. And he did that as well. Made a big promise to his late mother, and he can now put a big green check mark next to both of them. And this guy's gone through a lot, obviously, with the loss of his mother at a very young age, the blood clot he suffered his sophomore year of college, and how that almost ended his football career right then and there. Getting drafted in the 6th round, now the highest paid guard in NFL history. He got emotional when talking about his parents, specifically his mother, today in his press conference. So that was a special moment for him, and good on him, big guy. I mean, he's in his mid-20s, making that big deal, and now he's going to be playing in Kansas City for a few more years, which is always good. The Chiefs certainly could use Trey Smith for a few more years, especially with the way he's played. This are just mauls and throws defensive linemen around. I mean, Trey Smith hardly gets speed, and he's getting better and better. Like, he was really impressive his rookie year. Dude, he got better. He's improved over the years. So it's a lot of fun to see him playing at the level that he's playing at. All right, so that is the reactions from day one of training camp. Some non-football notes, non-gridiron notes with the Chiefs. Mark Donovan was talking. He did a joint press conference with some of the people over at the university there, over at Missouri Western. I said Northwest in a different podcast. I apologize. It's Missouri Western, not Northwest Missouri State. That's a different university. That's in Maryville. But Mark Donovan talked with some members of the university, and the talk was basically positive about wanting to stay in St. Joe, continue being in St. Joe, and even made a comment that as long as they're still at Arrowhead, which is going to be through 2031 or 2030 rather, through 2030, they'll still be in St. Joe for training camp. That is the opposite of what the mayor was saying. The mayor made it sound like the Chiefs are going to move training camp to North KC. That's not the vibe we got from Mark Donovan. That was interesting. I mean, this is why people have their concerns with the mayor and really with the county in general. And obviously, they've got their thing going on with not Mark Donovan, Frank White, who, by the way, let me just say this because we haven't talked about Frank White and the recent news with him. So enough signatures were collected on a petition to put him on the ballot for a recall. He tried to veto it, but legislation quickly came down and rejected that. They vetoed the veto. That's what they did. And one of the legislators mentioned that, I can't remember the exact number. I think in the last 45 county meetings, Frank White's only shown up for 2 of them and makes a 6-figure salary. I mean, listen, not to get too political here, but whenever you have a politician that is making a salary like that and they're not willing to do the job that's in their description, they're not even willing to show up for the meetings, you should be pissed off. And listen, I'll tell you right now, on that August ballot, Frank White, I mean, that's going to be a blowout against him. If it's not 80 to 20%, in favor to recall him and remove him from his seat, I'll be shocked. However, I'm going to take it a step further here. I don't think we end up having to see Jackson County voters vote on that. And I'll tell you why. Because usually in these kinds of situations, and keep in mind, Frank White's a former athlete, a lot of these guys don't want to go down with a loss. Frank White, now I'm sure he'll fight his battle and try to campaign and make his case, but Frank White will resign before that vote. And I don't have the date of that in front of me. I think it's the 26th of August. When is that? Frank White, August 26th, I believe. Yeah, August 26th. That's when it's going to be. Now, I am seeing this from Fox 4. They're not, the Jackson County Election Board is not preparing for an August 26th election on the recall of Frank White. That would be interesting. I'll be honest, I have not followed up on that, but listen, I think it's a matter of when, not if, Frank White's going to be removed, because I think he's on borrowed time right now. But anyway, Mark Donovan, the reason I bring that up is Mark Donovan mentioned, hey, the county's going through some things right now. We're kind of letting them play that out. We're staying out of that. But he did say that we continue to make progress. He admitted that's been a redundant thing that he said, that he had acknowledged that it's pretty boring to keep saying that. He also said, we are closer than we've ever been. Well, I'd like to think so, considering how much time has passed by and you asked the state of Kansas to extend the star bonds for a year. Now, he did say some things that were a little new and interesting, because the things he said, it sounds like he's leaning towards renovation. He said that the Royals' decision to leave, when and if they leave, I think it is, again, when, not if, does impact their decision to renovate, and more so the timeline of that. Because if they do want to renovate, if they're able to pass a vote to get some county and city help, then the next step is, okay, when would the Royals leave? Because if the Royals were to leave sooner, that certainly would allow the Chiefs to speed up their process in the renovation deal. If the Royals decide to stay all the way until 2030, then the renovation plans might take some time, because part of the renovation plan was to have an activity zone where Kauffman Stadium currently is. Now, I certainly hope that they put together a better rendering deal, just a better proposal overall, because the last one was pretty bad. I mean, say all you want about Frank White and the mayor and being tied with the Royals and all of this. The Chiefs did not have a good proposal for last year's vote. They just didn't. Another thing that Mark Donovan mentioned, and this has been said before, but it is worth repeating, he said that feedback from fans, season ticket holders especially, is to make sure whatever they do is to have the ability to tailgate, have a big parking lot, and continue to have a loud stadium. Now, the part about having a loud stadium, I think that's more so up to the fans than anything else. I mean, it helps as long as a team plays well. He also said that in the survey, the one feedback they got is that the Chiefs are trusted by these people in the survey, that the Chiefs will do what's best for the team. And Mark Donovan has said that. Quote, what makes sense for our fans and for the next generation to come, there are really good arguments on both sides. That's from Mark Donovan. He did say, and he's said this before, that they need to grab all the information necessary before presenting it to the Hunt family, because the Hunt family will look over it. They will ask Mark Donovan and the key members of the Chief staff for their input. But at the end of the day, it will be the Hunt family's one and final decision. Though I will say, I do think Mark Donovan's word holds a lot of weight with Clark Hunt. Mark Donovan, the rumors are he's frustrated with Jackson County. Now, he was asked, is there frustration with the county? I mean, he said, I want to call it frustration, but like I said earlier, he said that the county has some things to sort out. Now, I don't think he's ever going to publicly throw the county under the bus. No way. But I think he does have his issues with the county. I certainly do. And I think he's I think the Chiefs want to try to stay and renovate Arrowhead, but they've got that shiny object a few miles west, and they're keeping a close eye on that thing. So Bob says Donovan might be part of the problem. Why would he be? I mean, he's looking out for what's in the best interest of the Chiefs. And look, I know a lot of you guys subscribe to the border war and all that. Not me. I just want them to do it right. I think getting a new stadium is the right move. Doesn't have to be in Kansas. It could be in Missouri. I don't know of a lot of potential options for that in Missouri. Maybe 20 years ago, but now that downtown is as big as it is now, I don't know if there are a lot of serious options. I mean, look at the Royals. There's all this talk about Washington Square Park, but has there been any actual progress with Washington Square Park? It sounds more like it's either going to be 119th and Null in Overland Park or North KC. I don't think we're going to see the Royals going downtown or the Crossroads area at the very least. I don't think that's happening. Hopefully we get an answer soon because listen, this discussion was fun for a while and now it's getting boring and tedious, and he kind of acknowledged that again. So we'll see what happens there. Some big news in the NFL today. A former Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl champion has announced his retirement, and that player is Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger. I'll never forget when he first signed with the Chiefs in, I think it was 2019. Patrick Mahomes quickly took to Twitter and posted a GIF of a Honey Badger, which I thought was great. Somewhat of a surprise at 33 years old. He announced it today on his Instagram account. One of the best safeties and defensive backs in Chiefs history, in my opinion. Even if it was just for 3 years, those were 3 great years. I said at the time, he is the best free agent signing in Chiefs history, and I would be willing to put that over Priest Holmes and Willie Roaf. But I think Joe Thuney might now have that title as best free agent signing in Chiefs history. But boy, I mean, regardless who you would rank 1 through 4, Tyrann Mathieu is on that list, and he is one of the best free agent signings of all time. And I do want to share this real quickly here, because I know with Tyrann Mathieu, I think some people, when they think of in Kansas City, when they think of Tyrann Mathieu, they think of the response he had to a Chiefs fan saying that Chiefs fans are toxic because he, and I'll say this, my one big criticism of Tyrann Mathieu, I think he gave way too big of a damn as to what other people thought of him. I mean, you would see Tyrann Mathieu on Twitter responding to anyone that would mention his name. I wrote an article about Tyrann Mathieu back when I was writing for Arrowhead Addict, and Arrowhead Addict put out the article, and they'll put out a tweet, to try to engage people into clicking the article and reading it. Tyrann Mathieu responded to it, and he was not even tagged in that tweet. I mean, I don't know if he would look up his name or how he would come across those tweets, but he responded to a lot of people that talked about him, even when they didn't tag him. And also had some of that on Instagram as well. I think athletes need to just be better about that kind of thing. Just ignore it. I mean, listen, I get some negative comments from time to time. I'm not on a big platform like Tyrann Mathieu, but man, sometimes you just got to chuckle and not really worry about that. I don't recall a lot of interactions with people who are negative, but I remember somebody once, I did a Q&A on my Instagram, and I'll do these from time to time. I know I haven't done one in a while. I'll do one soon. One of the questions, it wasn't really a question. It was just, hey, I tried trolling you, but you never respond to me. And they had the crying emoji. I'm like, well, shit, man, you probably need something better to do with your time. Here's how I will remember Tyrann Mathieu, not just as a Super Bowl champion, what he did on the field for the Chiefs, but I think this story is very telling and one that needs to be told. Let me remove that. Why are we not getting that? There we go. Hopefully you guys can see that. Let me try to zoom in a little bit. More so the tweet than anything else. He tweeted this in October of 2018. This was right before he became a Kansas City Chief. Talked about how he was kicked out of LSU, got in some trouble, and there were some issues that he dealt with. And it looked like he might not have a football career. But Tyrann Mathieu figured it out. And Tyrann Mathieu is living proof. He's a great example that people can change and grow. I think Kareem Hunt's another good example of that. Definitely got a second opportunity in Kansas City. I mean, what did we hear for a long time? There's no way Kareem Hunt's getting a second chance in KC. Sure, there were certainly some circumstances that led to that point, but I think when Andy Reid and Brett Veach want to give you a second chance, obviously they needed Clark Hunt's approval for it. Hey, man, that's a pretty big gift in life itself. So second chances are a pretty big deal. And we know Andy Reid to be a guy that's given a lot of second chances. I know with Tyreek Hill, it's not as clear as to what really happened in that college situation with his ex-fiance. But at the time, the thought was he had choked his, at the time, pregnant girlfriend. And Andy Reid was willing to give him a second chance. He gave Mike Vick a second chance once he got out of prison. I mean, Andy Reid's been known to give a lot of second chances, whether whatever happened in the first incident was under his watch or not. He's given a lot of second chances. And listen, Tyrann Mathieu already got his second chance before playing for Andy Reid, but it just became a big story. And I remember sharing that at the time during Kansas City's playoff run, their Super Bowl run, really. And it was a story that was picked up by a lot of people. And I decided to share that again. And it's a popular post that a lot of people love. So, which I'm glad to see. And some people have shared their story with struggles and what they've dealt with, whether it's alcohol, violence, whatever it is. I think a guy like Tyrann Mathieu is proof. He's evidence that people can change and grow. It's never too late. Better to do it sooner rather than later. But it's good to see his growth for sure. Let's see. Kyle says, I don't know if you answered my question yet, but do you think the Chiefs should get one more receiver with Rice's suspension? I was thinking Scary Terry. They're not going to get Scary Terry because of the Rice suspension. No, that's going to cost them a lot of money. The Chiefs aren't really in the greatest financial position either. As far as free agent wide receivers, there aren't a lot of options, if we're being quite honest here. I'll go over that list real quickly here. Let's see if I can find who's available at the wide receiver position. There we go. You have Keenan Allen, you have Amari Cooper, Gabe Davis, Nelson Aguilar is available, DJ Chark, who's going to turn 29 soon. That's a little bit of a surprise. Tyler Boyd, who I thought was very good when he was in Cincinnati, spent one season in Tennessee. He's available now. I know Chris Conley retired, former Chief, but hey, we've seen guys come out of retirement before. Let's see. Isn't Odell Beckham Jr. a free agent? Or do I have that incorrect? Or did he retire? No, he's still available. He's a free agent. His career just isn't what it once was. Spent some time with the Dolphins last year. I mean, if that's a guy that would be like your number 6 or 7 receiver, I would not have an issue with that. And that's only if, Rice gets suspended, which is going to happen at some point. Yeah, I like Keenan Allen. I like Tyler Boyd as well. I know the Chiefs had interest in Tyler Boyd last offseason. But we'll see. Joshua says the Kansas deal is better, period. I do agree. I think the Legends spot itself with a dome is better than where the Truman Sports Complex is right now. Now, I would have to see the renovation proposal. I mean, if it's something that just blows my socks off, I'll say, yeah, sure. Now, I think the one big turnoff with the Chiefs in renovating is they would still be at the Truman Sports Complex. Look, there's a reason why the Royals want to leave. Yeah, is Tyrann Mathieu a Chiefs Hall of Famer, and is he a Pro Football Hall of Famer? By the way, a fun little fact about Tyrann Mathieu, when you look at his resume, he's a 4-time All-Pro. 3 of them as a member of the first team All-Pro, and he made it as a second team once. He made first team and second team All-Pro in the same year in 2019. This doesn't happen often. The reason that is because in 2019 he made it first team as a defensive back, and then he made it as a safety on the second team. The way it works on the All Pro team, and I hope they kind of change this because it is kind of weird. But they'll vote on cornerbacks, they'll vote on safeties, and then they'll vote on like an extra defensive back, because sometimes there are defensive backs that do play that safety position and also can play some slot corner as well. And Mathieu did some of that in 2019. So that's why he made the All Pro twice that year. He made it first team as a defensive back, second team as a safety. I mean, that just doesn't happen. And he was also on the 2010 All Decade team, became a Super Bowl champion. I think this guy is someone who should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Does he go into the Chiefs Hall of Fame? Well, he didn't spend enough time in Kansas City to have earned that. But 3 years, they were short years, but 3 very good short years from Tyrann Mathieu. I know he struggled more in 2021 as did the other safeties, but I think he belongs in the Chiefs Hall of Fame. Where did he play the most? Where he had the greatest amount of success? He spent 5 seasons in Arizona where he was very good, but he got that Super Bowl title in Kansas City. I think he belongs in the Chiefs Hall of Fame. Another player whose name has been in discussion for the Hall of Fame recently is Philip Rivers. Philip Rivers, and I did not realize he was not retired. I guess he officially retired now. Came out with a video, says that he'll retire as a Charger. I got a question for you guys in the chat on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I want to hear from you guys as I discuss this. Is Tyrann Mathieu, or excuse me, is Philip Rivers a Pro Football Hall of Famer? I'll tell you right now. When I first heard that question, I said, hell no. Now, what allows a quarterback to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Championships helps. It will help for sure. Having great numbers, that is definitely a big bonus as well. Postseason success, because if you don't have the Super Bowl like Dan Marino, but if you got the 9 other things, that certainly will help you get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But when I'm looking at Philip Rivers, okay, he doesn't have the Super Bowl ring. In fact, the postseason success is not that great in general compared to other quarterbacks. Now, let's compare him to Eli Manning, because he and Eli Manning came from the same draft class. When it comes to career passing yards, Philip Rivers is 6th. 5th is Big Ben. 4th is Favre. 3rd is Peyton Manning. 2nd is Breeze. 1st is obviously Brady. So Rivers is 6th all time. And he might get surpassed by Aaron Rodgers this year. Aaron Rodgers needs 488 yards to pass Rivers. But for right now, Rivers is 6th. Eli is 11th. Oddly enough, for touchdown passes, Rivers is also 6th. He's 1 touchdown pass ahead of Marino, and Eli is also 11th in that category as well. As far as completions go, Rivers is 8th. Eli, surprise, surprise, is 11th again. When it comes to career wins all time, Rivers is 9th with 134 wins. Eli is 14th with 117 wins. Playoff record, and this is where Rivers and Eli, you see a separation here. Rivers is 5-7. Eli is 8-4. Now, Rivers has the better numbers than Eli. And I'm saying Eli because I know in his first year of eligibility this past year, he did not get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That was a surprise to some people. Eli Manning will get into the Hall of Fame. 100% will get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He'll get into Canton. And the big reason why he'll get into Canton, he was the quarterback who led the Giants to not 1, but 2 Super Bowl wins. And these were not just 2 Super Bowl wins. And I'm not trying to make the Super Bowl wins sound ordinary, because they're not. They're all massive. I mean, you won the Super Bowl, for crying out loud. But these were Super Bowl wins over the GOAT, over the high and mighty New England Patriots, one of which prevented a perfect season. The Patriots won every single game that year except for that Super Bowl. And I think that was Super Bowl 40, if I recall correctly. So Eli Manning is 100% getting in. He's got great numbers, but the postseason success is going to propel him into the Hall of Fame. Oddly enough, Eli, with his 8-4 postseason record, the only 2 postseasons he's ever won a playoff game were the same years he won the Super Bowl. Both against the Patriots. Any postseason where the Giants did not win the Super Bowl with Eli Manning, they didn't win a playoff game. Kind of odd, but that's just the way Eli Manning's postseason career panned out. But still, he did enough to earn him what will one day be a Pro Football Hall of Fame bid. He's going to get that. Now, whenever people want to make a case for someone to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, what's the one thing they always do? They'll compare to someone that played in their era. And I think Eli Manning is a great comparison because they were both from the same draft class. And again, I'm confident Eli Manning's going to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Now, let's just say Eli Manning goes in the following year, this upcoming year. Phillip Rivers. Now, players generally don't do this often, but fans and people in the media will look at Phillip Rivers and say, well, he's got better numbers than Eli Manning. He has more passing yards, more passing touchdowns, more completions, more career wins, might not have the postseason success. And boy, man, did the Chargers have some good teams in the late 2000s, just couldn't capitalize on it. They came close to beating the Patriots that year. They were undefeated. Brady threw 3 picks in that game, but LT was hurt. The offense was just not in rhythm, but I digress. Rivers does have the better numbers. If you don't have the postseason success, but if you've got the numbers, and this is more prevalent for the quarterback position than any other position, that can help your case. Now, I'll say this. Like I said, first thought when I heard the question, is Phillip Rivers a Hall of Famer? I said, hell no. But then I did some research and thought about it more. I thought, wait a minute. He's got better numbers than Eli Manning, who will one day get in. If Eli Manning's in, Phillip Rivers has a case. I think Phillip Rivers will get in, but it's going to take a while. It's going to be one of those situations where it's like, you're going to have to wait a while. Look at Marty Schottenheimer. He's been eligible for the Pro Football. He's been a semifinalist at the very least, I think. Now, the case for Marty is difficult, and I get that for a coach and a quarterback, it's very different. I mean, Marty won a lot of football games, both with the Chiefs and in San Diego with the Chargers. But he doesn't have the postseason success for it, to show for it. He just doesn't. As much as we all love Marty, his case is difficult, and he could get in one day. I'm not saying it's impossible, but that could be one that, his name might not be there anytime soon. So when I look at Phillip Rivers, my first thought, no, he's not a Hall of Famer, but I do think he gets in eventually. Chuck has a really good point here. Was he ever first team or second team All-Pro? I don't believe he was. No championships. Seems like good player, not Hall of Famer. He's definitely going into the Chargers Hall of Fame. No question about it. But man, I mean, if Eli gets in, all you have to do is compare the numbers and say, look, he may not have the postseason success, but he does have the better numbers. Like, look at Tony Gonzalez. Tony Gonzalez only won 1 playoff game in his entire career. Now, the tight end position is a far different discussion than the quarterback position. Still, though, you could look at Tony Gonzalez and say, okay, he didn't succeed in the postseason, but he did a lot of damn good things. He broke every career record possible at the tight end position. And that's what made Tony Gonzalez a first ballot Hall of Famer. Not quite the same at the quarterback position. I think Rivers gets in. It's just going to take a very long time. Joshua says Rivers was better than Eli Manning stat-wise. Yeah. I enjoy your podcast. Thank you for all you do. Hey, thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Here's my thing with the last thing I'll say about Rivers, and this is not for the Hall of Fame discussion. I know Rivers was so easy to hate as a Chiefs fan. because he was fiery, and whenever you pissed him off, he was always upset, and that always got under his skin. I'll never forget. I think it was in '06. The Chiefs and Chargers had a massive back and forth battle in that game, and wasn't it Kawika Mitchell? Remember Kawika Mitchell? Didn't he pick up Rivers and throw him down like a Dwayne the Rock Johnson spine buster? I swear that happened to Rivers. If that was not Rivers, someone else did it to a different quarterback. But I'm almost positive it was Rivers. I remember being thrilled watching that. That was awesome. That was cool. But I'll say this about Rivers. As much as he was easy to hate as a Chiefs fan, during his entire time in Kansas City, which was 04, or excuse me, in San Diego, in LA, 04 to what, 2019, 2020? I'll say this, up until the Patrick Mahomes era, I think as a fan, I would have traded a Chiefs quarterback for Phillip Rivers. I mean, you definitely would have traded Matt Castle for Phillip Rivers. Brody Croyle, Tyler Thigpen, Damon Heward. Now, Alex Smith, he definitely changed the culture in Kansas City, helped bring a lot more wins than the Chiefs had in previous years right before Alex Smith. But there was a ceiling with Alex Smith. I would have traded Alex Smith for Phillip Rivers. Obviously, you're not trading Mahomes for Rivers. But man, there were a lot of Chiefs quarterback over the years that you just looked at and said, man, I would have rather had Phillip Rivers than whoever the Chiefs had at quarterback over those years. Would have traded Thigpen for Rivers. Man, I love Thigpen. I don't think he got a fair shot in Kansas City. But yeah, I would have traded Thigpen for Rivers. Yeah, 100%. But yeah, that Rivers retirement discussion and the chatter, the debate about him in the Hall of Fame, more interesting than I thought it would be. So there you have it. A couple other notes here. Jerry Jones is in the news because he made a very controversial comment that's got people up in arms. Was asked about the whole contract situation with Micah Parsons, who decided to show up for training camp despite not getting a deal that he wants, and does have that 50-year option for the following year. Jerry Jones said, just because we sign him doesn't mean we're going to have him. He was hurt 6 games last year. It was 4 games, not 6, but not the point. Seriously, I remember signing a player for the highest paid at that position in the league, and he got knocked out 2/3 of the year, referring to Dak Prescott. So there's a lot of things you can think about, just as the player does, when you're thinking about committing and guaranteeing money. JJ Watt took to Twitter and said he made a facetious comment saying, whenever you can take a shot at a player that you're trying to negotiate with, you do it. Micah Parsons retweeted that, which I thought was interesting. Now, let me ask you a question. Was Jerry Jones incorrect? He didn't say anything wrong. I mean, listen, look, every year, and I know we talked about this just on the last podcast. Every year, what do we hear? We hear a lot about record-breaking contracts. We hear in Kansas City, highest paid kicker, highest paid center, highest paid guard of all time, with highest paid defensive tackle, and Chris Jones, Harrison Butker, Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith. So the Chiefs have done their fair share of making some of their players the highest paid at the history of their position. And obviously it'll change at some point. Just look this off season. Didn't we have some players break the record for biggest contract among non-quarterbacks? Jamar Chase got it. I think Myles Garrett got it. TJ Watt just got it. He's the most recent guy. There was someone in between. Max Crosby, I believe, was there as well. I mean, we got some serious contracts that were handed out, especially at the edge rusher position. And I think Trey Hendrickson is trying to break TJ Watt's deal. And I'll get into Trey Hendrickson shortly. Here's my point. I think owners and general managers, they're always hesitant to give that much money to a player. Because you sign a player to that big of a deal and they get hurt, well, shit, you're stuck with that deal. You still got to pay them, especially all the guaranteed money that these players want. That's the issue in the Trey Hendrickson saga, which I'll get into, but he's not wrong. I think the delivery and the tone he said that was probably rubbing people the wrong way, but you know, that's Jerry Jones for you. I think ultimately it's like, look at John Dorsey. What got John Dorsey fired? One big reason was he gave record breaking contracts to Eric Berry and Justin Houston. And what happened? They both got hurt after getting those record setting contracts. Fair or not, that's how teams get judged. I mean, look at the Chiefs. They traded L'Jarius Sneed, and instead of giving Sneed the big contract, they give Chris Jones a big deal. Not only do they get a very high third round draft pick from that Sneed trade, Sneed got hurt. He only played 5 or 6 games for Tennessee, and hopefully he can be healthier this year. But he went and signed a massive 3-year deal with Tennessee, and so far it's not looking like a good contract because of the injury. Fair or not, that's how general managers and owners will get judged. You hand a big contract to a player and he gets hurt. Yeah, there's definitely going to be some pushback from that. I think that's what Jerry Jones is ultimately afraid of. It's a valid fear, but man, sometimes you just got to roll the dice. And I think that's what you're going to eventually see with the Micah Parsons contract negotiation in Dallas. Another big contract negotiation, and we've talked about this before. This is just getting crazier and crazier. The saga is getting bigger, and that's Trey Hendrickson, who's holding out, as is rookie first-round pick Shamar Stewart, 2 edge rushers that they desperately need. Look, according to Diana Rossini of The Athletic, who does a tremendous job, by the way, with her reporting, she says that the issue is they can't agree on the guaranteed money, and that the Bengals are only willing to give 1 year of guaranteed money. Trey wants 3 years. I guess in the last 24 hours or in the last few days, he got 2 offers, none of which he liked or met his requests. Apparently, he's willing to sit out the season. That's been made clear by Trey Hendrickson many times. Listen, Trey Hendrickson has done a media tour really criticizing the Bengals organization. I don't want to say he's thrown them under the bus, but man, it's like one level below that. Trey Hendrickson showed up to, I can't remember if it was Bengals OTAs or mandatory minicamp. He showed up just to talk to the media and give his side of the story. I mean, I know Chris Jones and the Chiefs, they had their contract negotiation drama, but did Chris Jones ever throw the Chiefs under the bus? Did the Chiefs ever throw Chris Jones under the bus? No, never. And there were Chris Jones agents, the Katz brothers, took a lot of heat from the public, but the two sides never once publicly criticized the other. And listen, there was a lot of drama there because it led into the offseason, but they figured it out. And how did that end, by the way? Oh yeah, hoisting a Lombardi trophy for the 2nd year in a row. That's how it ended. He's in Florida with his family, training there until he gets a deal. Look, Trey Hendrickson is going to play this year. I don't care what anyone says. He's going to play this year. First of all, the Bengals have to pay him. They have to. Who on that Bengals defense right now is worth a damn? Anyone? No, nobody. They lost a bunch of guys this year. Who'd they lose? Sam Hubbard retired. Jermaine Pratt, their leading tackler, was let go not too long ago. Von Bell, Mike Hilton, Sheldon Reagan. And listen, I get a lot of these players are not great players. That's why they moved on from them. But, I mean, geez, who do you have left? You need Trey Hendrickson. You drafted Shamar Stewart, a first-round pick, and he's holding out. He's not at training camp. He has not had one single repetition with the Bengals. He has been sitting out the entire time, even in OTAs. Look, Trey Hendrickson will play. The Bengals need him. Their defense is already bad with Trey Hendrickson and potentially Shamar Stewart. If those two play great, 2 great edge rushers could really help the defense. But still, even with Trey and Shamar, the defense is bad. But the Bengals still need Trey Hendrickson. So they'll either pay him what he wants. Maybe this bleeds out into week 1, kind of like the Chris Jones thing. But even if they don't come to terms on some sort of an agreement, is Trey Hendrickson really going to miss out on $21 million, which is what his contract is for this year? Listen, perhaps he's been smart with his money and he's earned, what, $68 million in his career? as long as he's been smart with his money, I suppose he could miss out on 21 million, but I don't care if you've made $68 million or only $1 million in your career. Nobody is going to miss out on a $21 million pay. I shouldn't say payday, but a season's worth of pay. I don't care how rich you are. I don't care how far apart contract negotiations are. Trey Hendrickson will show up at some point, even if there is no deal. I mean, look at Chris Jones. He let that go all the way into week 1. He signed a deal that didn't even benefit him at the end of the day for that specific season because he wanted to show up and play. He knew he was missing out on money. And he was able to get that incentive. That remember that sack in the last game of the season? He was able to get that. That's for sure. But listen, I mean, if Trey Hendrickson misses the first game, it won't be a $21 million pay for him for this season, but it'll still be what, $19-20 million? Are you really going to miss out on $20 million because you did not get 10 or 20 million more? He's not going to sit out the whole season, guys. There's a lot of money that he wants. I get it, but there's also a lot of money that he could lose out of all of this. I think he'll eventually show up. Last note here, this is more from the AFC West side of things. The Raiders are loading up, getting a couple of vets. His first one is safety Jamal Adams, an All-Pro and a Pro Bowler from 2018 to 2020. Spent some time in Seattle. Great career there, reuniting with Pete Carroll in Vegas. Most recently, Jamal Adams spent time with the Tennessee Titans and the Detroit Lions last year and did not end up getting to finish the season with the Lions. Was released on January the 1st, if I recall. They also added a wide receiver and an NFL journeyman in Philip Dorsett. This is his 10th time. It really is 10th NFL transaction, including where he got drafted in the NFL. He has spent time with 8 different teams, twice with Seattle, and now this is his second stint with the Raiders at 32 years old. Also, reuniting with Pete Carroll. Now, keep in mind, the Raiders drafted 3 wide receivers this year. They're pretty serious on trying to improve the wide receiver position. And if you're the Raiders, you're hoping Philip Dorsett can help provide that veteran presence there. Obviously, Brock Bowers is going to continue to be your primary pass catcher. They drafted Ashton Genty this year, which is pretty significant, I think. Now, I'll say this about the Raiders. They're still the Raiders. I mean, until they prove otherwise, because we've seen them have some hype. Remember Devontae Adams? They were supposed to be good that year. Remember Antonio Pierce? That guy was supposed to be their savior. Max Crosby campaigned so hard for him to be the head coach. And when Max Crosby, I mean, when you get his endorsement, I guess it means a lot. Sure. But didn't work out. I mean, listen, I'm a big fan of Pete Carroll. I'm not a big fan of adding guys who are in their 70s to be your head coach, but if you do it with anyone, I suppose you do it with Pete Carroll. So we'll see what they do there. Geno Smith, another guy with familiarity. I mean, they're trying to bring in some guys that could be relevant from the Seattle days in Vegas and trying to load up on that offense. They're really relying on these young offensive players to come through. If there's a guy that you could do it under, it's Pete Carroll. But you're still in a very tough and competitive division. And at the end of the day, and I've said it before with the Raiders, I'll say it again. I expect some kind of improvement, but not enough to compete in this division. So I don't think they're going to be a dark horse team. And if they do, great. But I'll believe it when I see it with the Raiders. Plain and simple. All right, that'll do it for this edition of the Chief Zone podcast. Thank you all for joining me tonight on this Tuesday. We'll be back tomorrow and Thursday for the Chief Zone podcast. And then Friday, I don't know exactly what time Friday, but bear with me. I'll announce a time later this week. But Friday will mark the return of the Red Friday live chat. The way this works is I need you guys to watch and interact with me on the Red Friday Q&A live chat, not just interact. I mentioned Q&A. I want your questions. If you're new to the Red Friday live chat, if you've never been part of the Red Friday live chat before, it's always been a Q&A live stream. That's what it's been on Facebook, YouTube. Going to try to do it more on Instagram now. So show up on Friday. And if you haven't already, YouTube, Facebook, turn on the notifications, Instagram. That way you'll know when we go live. By the way, the YouTube, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are going to be doing much more content on YouTube. We started it last year, got off to a nice start there. We're around 800 subscribers on there, which, not bad for a first season. But if you guys could subscribe to that and let one friend that's a big Chiefs fan that loves Chiefs podcasts know about it, it certainly would help out a lot. So if you haven't already, please go to youtube.com/@thechiefszone or just search the Chiefs Zone on YouTube. You'll see it come up. We're trying to build a YouTube up. So if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Would greatly help out the podcast and the live streams moving forward. All right, guys, my name is Farzin Vasugian. We'll be back tomorrow, exactly 24 hours from now, 7 p.m. Central Time. Talk more about Chiefs training camp and any other news that comes up. I'll talk to you all then. Take care.